Federica. Okay.
Ah, perfect. Okay, we missed the the first part.
Introduction.
We missed the introduction, but it's okay. So we'll say again, good afternoon to everyone. And so we don't have Anna Siri for our institutional greetings, but we have here, I'm very pleased to invite Simona Marchesini from Alteritas to speak now, who is the project scientific director, and she will tell us more about the X-Formal project. So thank you, Simona.
Okay, thank you. I share my screen. So I have a small presentation just to say some words about sorry, I shared the wrong desktop. Okay. Okay, you should see it now.
It is not extended, not full page, but we can see it anyway. If you can go to
Very strange, yes.
presentation mode.
Don't know why. Okay, presentation. So I told so a couple of words about the project X-Formal. Explore the heritage of the past in an informal testing. This is the title of my presentation today. The Marie Sklodowska-Curie action, RISE action X-Formal. Informal and non-formal e-learning for cultural heritage. The project is running from September 2021 and will end in August 2025. You can see the contractual partners, the University of Genova, Alteritas, Aragón, Museo de Zaragoza, Centro Ciencia Viva de Braganza, Forskningscentrum för europeisk fredsspråket di Vasa in Finland, Istituto Politecnico di Braganza in Portugal, il Museo Nazionale Etrusco di Villa Giulia, MIBACT, Cloud, our technological partner in Mariano Comenze in Como, Società Dante Alighieri Wrocław, University of Bordeaux-Montaigne, University of Poznan, and University of Zaragoza. What are the key ingredients of the project? First of all, the history of ancient Europe. So pre-Roman cultures from the 8th century BC to Romanization in the first AD. Peoples who are the so-called minorities of the past, such as the Venetian, the Celtiberians, the Ratians, the Gauls, and that are usually neglected in the school curricula. Then the rediscovery of the landscape for an authentic experience. We have written this project during the pandemic, and we wish that people could come back to touch the monuments, to discover the museums. So the landscape is a very important frame of this project. Heutagogy, the self-determined learning, so people decide when, where, who, what to learn in autonomy. And the project is supported by IT infrastructure because it bases on a game app that you can download for both system Android and iOS in your smartphone. And in the next week, we will launch the official link to download the application. Then sharing experience between the academic and non-academic world. So universities and research centers will meet museums and IT partners. These are the pathways, so the seven pathways of the project, 2 in Italy, 2 in France and Spain. One of them is virtual, and 1 pathway in Poland. Feasibility, we dedicate special attention to the feasibility, reachability of the sites, which was not always simple and easy because of the spreading. So except Italy, which has a concentration of many sites, archaeological sites and museums, in the other countries there is no such a concentration of sites. And then we made studies of accessibility for the museums and the archaeological sites. And for this reason, we made agreements with the museums involved in the pathways. This is an example of the user interface, which is simple and accessible, based on the informal graphics developed by Unige. So we have accessible graphics about background, and this is an example of the representation of the pathways on the map with an overview of the starting point of the projects. And then we come briefly to the narratives. The narratives play an important role in our project, because these pathways are led by each pathway is led by a character, a person of the past, who introduces the player in the play, can feel himself at ease in the situation, in the context he moves in. This is an example of the multicultural town of Verona, written by Giuliana Borghesani. Back in Verona at last, after visiting my relatives in beautiful Brixia, it's Gaia speaking, a Roman matrona of Celtic origin. And now I'm at home here. My grandmother told me that near Verona, in the great plain crossed by the river, that is said to be the color of my eyes, and so on. So I don't want to spoil the project, but it is an example of informal narrative for each pathway. The narratives help the player to follow the story along a certain pathway. They help the player to delve deeper into the past, thanks to the empathy with the characters who are part of the past, of this past. Short stories are told in a colloquial language. It wasn't easy to choose the right register of the language, but we hope we did successfully. The everyday characters are, for example, a young man from Veneto, a Roman matron from Celtic origin, a Roman soldier, a pilgrim, and so on. And the character recounts aspects of everyday life. I take some words as inspiration for later discussions from Ikebal, Narratology, Introduction to the Theory of Narrative. He says that narrative is a text in which an agent or a subject conveys to another a story in a particular medium, such as language, imagery, sounds, buildings, or a combination thereof. Then he says narratology is the ensemble of theories of narratives, narrative texts, images, spectacles, events, cultural artifacts that tell a story. The segment of reality, the corpus about which narratology attempts to make its pronouncements, consists of narrative texts of all kinds, made of a variety of purposes and serving many different functions. To better understand the narrative developed also in the past, we use often, we as linguists, as specialists in the humanities, the theory of frames, starting with Fillmore, 1976, and then later with many contributions. It can be a handy tool for interpreting texts of every kind, including narratives. The same information can be given in different ways and perspectives, considering the cause, the aim, and the target of communication. The context underlying a text is made of many factors, and most importantly, it depends on the worldview and experience of the person who produces it in the past and in the present. It is a difficult task to create narratives in the context of a scientific project, in an informal game. There is always a danger of oversimplifying or, at the contrary, not expressing the educational and training content required for the project. Colloquial language hides content that is subject to constant historical, archaeological, and linguistic revision. On the other hand, using concepts that are too complex runs the risk of undermining the playful aspect and making the language didactic. For this reason, the narratives developed for the informal project have undergone various revision processes. We hope that the final product has fulfilled the task we set ourselves, and we invite you right now to try to test our game as soon as it will be ready in the next weeks. So I leave the floor to Federica and end with this my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simona. Really, thank you. Yes, I'm going to take the floor again to introduce now the workshop team and share with you also some opening thoughts. So first of all, for instance, why are we here today? Because it has become increasingly important to reflect on narratives, as Simona said also, and because they are the structural frameworks through which memory is ordered, interpreted, and shared. If we think about it, narratives shape the ways in which individuals and groups relate to their past. And also, we have to bear in mind that the act of narration is never neutral. It is selective, interpretative, and often political. It can preserve, but also redefine. It can include, but also exclude. And places of memory, such as museums, monuments, digital archives, they provide material supports for these narratives. They anchor them in concrete spaces, but however, they require, of course, careful historical and scientific organization, from the choice of location to the collection of documentation, from community endorsement to the physical or virtual setup, and of course, to the drafting of text that can make the traces of the past accessible and meaningful. And today, in a world that is shaped by globalization, mediatization, cultural massification, the relationship between memory and identity has become even more dynamic and fragmented, if we think about it. And within this framework, each community, each social group, down to the individual, is called upon to write and rewrite its own history in an ongoing process of redefining cultural identity. And it happens also that memory becomes a kind of a space of negotiation, a resource to be interpreted, contested, even reinvented. And I was also listening recently to a podcast interview with the Italian director Luca Guadagnino, who said something that really struck me, that what matters the most is the language and the narrative, how we are transported into a world, whether through words or images. And this, he said, matters even more than the plot itself. And I think that this idea perfectly captures why we are here today. And because our narratives are not just containers for information or of story, but they shape meaning itself. And the fact is that when approached critically, narratives can become powerful tools for alternative interpretations of the past, capable even of restoring a voice to, for example, historically marginalized subjects, for instance, and also spatial dimension. So, of course, they play a central role. Because the territory, for example, is not a passive backdrop, but a cultural form in itself, shaped by human actions, memories, representations. And all these things reflect precisely why we are here today, to think together on these dynamics and to explore how narratives shape our understanding of cultural heritage and how, in turn, they can be used to foster dialogue, participation, and even inclusion. We'll see a lot about this, I think, today. And now, before we move to our first speaker for this, our first session, I'd like to set the tone for this afternoon by sharing with you a short video by Bruno Bozzetto, who is a famous Italian animator and director, known especially for his, let's say, witty and satirical animated shorts. And this one is about a tough aspect because it's about the history of weapons and conflicts, but especially on how societies have built narratives around war and power. So I'll share my screen with you. Also, let me know if you can hear the sound. Can you hear it?
Poco. Perhaps it's the music because the
music.
you can move on probably. Yes. Bruno Bozzetto, ok.
Inizio era il buio. Poi venne la luce. Comparvero le piante, gli animali e l'uomo. Era nato così l'Homo sapiens, astuto e soprattutto in possesso di un'arma poderosa, il cervello. La storia non ci tramandò il motivo del primo battimento, ma possiamo senz'altro dedurlo. Il luminoso sorriso di una donna. E molto probabilmente fu ancora la donna ad inventare la prima arma, la clava. Inoltre a proteggersi dai continui assalti degli animali, i nostri antenati crearono con un bastone appuntito la più rudimentale delle spade. Poi, mentre l'uomo si allenava con la sua più moderna invenzione, la fionda, ecco che un incidente di lancio gli diede lo spunto per creare l'arma per eccellenza, l'arco. Con questo strumento, infatti, anche l'uomo meno dotato aveva la possibilità di trionfare sulla forza bruta. Ok. E fu con queste armi che migliaia di anni fa i nostri piccoli antenati sconfissero animali di mostruose dimensioni. Così, al sorgere della luna, solo, in quell'infinito silenzio, egli avrà conosciuto forse meglio di noi la gioia di vivere, la felicità di dominare su quel vasto e sconfinato territorio che Dio gli aveva concesso.
So here we are again. as you can see, it's very satirical. And also the beginning looks quite familiar. As you can see, there's a very old narrative behind it, taken, of course, in a very satirical way here, but we can all recognize it. There's a war that starts because of a woman, sounds like the Iliad, looks like the Iliad, and we all know this maybe. So now we can finally give voice to our speakers. And as we mentioned before, we are split in two sessions. In this first session, we will start with Emanuela Gilli from Museum of Montebelluna. Then we will have Giuliana Borghesani from Alteritas. Then Sergio Di Pasquale Luci, who is a reporter and a screenwriter. And then we'll have Agnieszka Smutek and Pranav Kelkar from Polish Cinema for Beginners. And later, as I said before, we will have a coffee break and then our second session. So now I am pleased to invite Emanuela Gilli from Museo of Montebelluna. And also, just a short reminder, it would be nice if everyone could start with a brief self-introduction so that we can get to know each other better and to foster and create a friendly atmosphere. Thank you, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening to everybody. Before sharing my screen, I want to thank you for inviting us to share our work. Now I share my presentation. Okay, that's good. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, and you
Yes.
can hear me too also.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Everything is
So,
good.
as you asked us, Federica, I briefly present myself, and my name is Emanuela Gilli. I work at the Natural History and Archaeology Museum in Montebelluna. And Montebelluna, where is Montebelluna? First, the first question. Montebelluna is a small town in northeastern Italy, not far from Venice. So it's because it is very, very small, so it's necessary to show it on the map. And I'm working here as the curator of the archaeological collections, and our collection dating from the Paleolithic to the Roman Age. And going straight to the point, I'm presenting the use of narratives to make everyone understand, to make everyone to understand the 2,500 years old narratives presenting on display in our ongoing archaeological exhibition. So the exhibition, in short, last 16th November, we opened the exhibition Fabole, in Italian, Le Situle raccontano i Veneti antichi. I tried to translate Situle, Fabole is Latin, it means stories, but it's not so simple to translate this term. I will ask help later. But Situle tell the ancient Veneti people. The exhibition was organized by. It is ongoing. It will close the 31st of August, next August. And it is organized by our museum together with the Archaeological Superintendenza in Padua and the National Museum at Testino in Este. And the exhibition highlights two exceptional archaeological artifacts the so-called situle, found in the pre-Roman necropolis of Montebelluna in our town. There are two bronze vases shaped like a bucket. That's the reason of the name. They are called situle. This is a Latin word meaning exact bucket. But luxury buckets, because they are richly decorated, as you can see, with images made with the technique of embossing and chisel, and very, as you can see, very complicated decoration. These two situlas, our two situlas, and I would like to underline that this one, the situla coming from the grave number 244 in Postmon, is included in the X-formal game map. And not, unfortunately, not this one, because it came later. So just this. But both of them are now exhibited in our exhibition. And but these two situlas are the most important examples of the material, not situlas in general, decorated bronze situla, are the most important examples of the material culture of the ancient Veneti. The people lived in northeastern Italy and the western part of Slovenia and southern part of Austria, between the 9th century before Christ and the arrival of Romans around the 3rd or 2nd century before Christ in our region. The scientific basis of the display has been mediated to enable everyone to understand contents, meanings, and value of the local archaeological heritage. And now I'm telling you about the style of displaying all the exhibition. But especially this, we made an effort, a special effort about these two vases, because the question is, the situla tells a story, but can everyone read it and can everyone understand it? This is very difficult. We can answer no, absolutely no, because the narratives of situla are very complicated for scholars and experts also, because their world is a very complicated world made of myths, family, ritual, economics, wealth, gentry, ceremony, power, territory, dynasty, disequality, war, tradition, and much more else. And they are carrying on their surfaces all of these narratives. And that's why we tried to explain, to tell in accessible way the story our two situlas tell. And to make this, we asked help to the school world. I'm simplifying the meaning. And we turned to the world of fiction story, fictional story for teaching history. And this is an important theme, and there is a lot of literature about this topic, about a fiction story used by teachers to stimulate curiosity and interest in learning history, built from historical sources. And so we asked Gabriella Bosmin to help us. And Gabriella I introduced herself. I imagine she's listening to me now. And Gabriella is a writer of short stories, and she is a history researcher, but she is retired, a teacher, and this is a very important point in my opinion. And she is also cooperating with a network of local scale geohistories. And you can see here a small a small text. This is the I'm sorry, it is in Italian, but the title is Once Upon a Time, Learning the Past Between Fiction and History. This is the title of the workshop, and it was it dates from the 2015. So it is they are working about these topics since a long time. So, and this network brings together schools, local authorities, associations and institutions, museums, about the themes of knowledge and understanding and valorization of the territory from the historical and geographical point of view. And we have been working with them since a lot of many years, and we are going to work forever with this network. So we asked Gabriella to rewrite in her own way the description, the complicated description of the narratives of the two situle published on scientific text. And here you can see it's very easy to understand what we did, starting from the scientific publication and the description of this is the second situla, the one coming from the grave number 5 in Posmon. And she rewrote the description, but in her way. And now I'm reading a short text she sent me to explain her work. And she writes, the two situle of the ancient vanity exhibited at the Montebelluna Museum tell aspects of the life of that people that archaeologists have well interpreted and explained using a scientific language. But for all visitors, adults and children, to easily understand the meaning of the pictures engraved in each situla, it was appropriate to use less specialized terminology and a simpler style. But the method had to be as well captivating, arousing curiosity and interest in what was being read. And so the author, Gabriella herself, has chosen the narrative method of the so-called speaking object. The situle themselves tell, in the first person, their stories engraved in the bronze. The result was a product understood and appreciated by users, and the meaning. No, sorry, I skip 2 lines. So the meaning had to remain strictly adherent to the interpretations of the archaeologists, but the narrative simplified and in language and form. The result was a product understood and appreciated by users. As you can see, and it was true, because finally we had very good feedback by visitors, and we they are a good tool, a useful tool used by the educational museum staff to communicate cultural, social, and technological and historical information to the public. So here you can see the book on display. It is a sort of illustrated book. We used an old illustrated book, and we put the text written by Gabriella. And here you see the original on display, the book, the Gabriella text, and in this picture you can see the other means of communication, for instance, the experimental reconstruction, very, you can see, necessary to understand the original shape and decoration of the situla, and video And so that is to say that narratives are not only text, but also images, video, sound, whatever you can use on display. But for us, it was the first time we used this kind of text in a display. Just it was a very good experience to complete our exhibition. So we suppose, we imagine, we hope that everybody is able to understand what we are trying to say. So how much is important all the values of this local cultural heritage. Thank you so much. And now I'm here for every question. And if you want, I can read you 2 lines. I have a book.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes. I prefer like this, here, this is the original. So this is the title is Feast in the Palace, and this is the history of the situla from the grave number 244. I read just the beginning. So in Italian, or do you want straight in English?
If there's the English version,
English. Okay. No, I'm translating simultaneously.
Okay.
I present myself. I am a situla. Yes, I am a sort of bucket, but originally I had an handle also. And for a long time, I've been using to contain a precious beverage, the wine, maybe, and so on. This just to show you the style.
Thank you very much. This is a very fascinating way to present the archaeological heritage. And it's also inspiring to hear how the archaeological record can still speak to us today in many different ways. And this book's idea is very original. I've never seen it before, so it's many compliments for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nice. It's a powerful storytelling, we can say. We thought that maybe at the end of our first session we'll have the space for questions, so we can put together all the questions after the first session, and then after the second session we will have our a moment just for us, our final discussion, so we can divide the 2 parts. So everyone who has questions for Emanuela Gilli can write their questions, and then later we will have this moment all together. So now we can proceed, and we will stay, as we will see, in the pre-Roman world still, and I invite Giuliana Borghesani from Alteritas to share with us her experience and perspective. Thank you.
Hey, Federica, I'm sorry. Please check a message from me here.
Oh, yes, sorry. I had to enter again in the link because I had a connection problem and my chat deleted. So sorry.
Okay.
Now
Or you can check the email. Yeah, I won't bother.
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And sorry.
Buonasera, buonasera a tutti. Vediamo se riesco. Allora, vedete tutto?
Sì, se attivi il riproduci, lì.
Questo?
Sì, quello. Sì, clicca su riproduci e così.
Aspetta. Non lo vedo.
No, c'è il triangolino in mezzo,
Sì, non lo vedevo, aspetta.
quello.
Allora,
Ok, puoi iniziare da capo? Ok, perfetto.
allora. How to narrate history, fantasy and science easily intertwine. An object speaks to the scientist, but he always suggests a story. Telling is easier than learning, and storytelling is combined with game. Scusate. Story, ma perché? Mi si nasconde. Aspetta, vediamo. Non capisco perché non riesco a chiudere. Un momento.
Le diapositive di Zoom che sono su
Sì, un attimo.
Dovresti vedere il tuo schermo e lo schermo della riunione. Clicca in alto sul tuo schermo,
Non lo vedo, aspetta,
nel menu di questa.
Allora, vediamo se capisco. Scusate, Niente.
E in alto, diciamo, nello schermo di Zoom, in alto c'è riunione e schermo di Giuliana Borghesani. Riesci a vederlo? Sopra, in alto.
Keynote. No, qua c'è Keynote. Video, partecipanti. A video?
Ma sei su Keynote,
Sì.
ok?
Eh,
E se clicchi su riproduci, che cosa succede?
Adesso riguardo. Riproduci. Aspetta. Ora vedo. Stories are told from the spoken word, and after the invention of writing, also through the written word. Oral storytelling, the first and oldest form of storytelling that has endured over the centuries, creates a sense of empathy that is stronger than any formal teaching. Greek tales, epics such as Gilgamesh, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the story of Noah, have in turn created the founding myths. E qua ci siamo di nuovo. Yet enable us to recognize their origins. They are nothing more than fantastic and have a faithful. Scusate perché non vedo. Abbiate pazienza, ma non so l'inglese, quindi dovete avere
Un
pazienza.
problema. E se ci sono le nostre facce sul
Sì,
lato, si può cliccare sulle iconcine che appaiono sopra e cliccare su quella rettangolare singola dove dice mostra il video dell'oratore attivo, così c'è solo quella e tutte le altre scompaiono.
aspetta. Video con grilli. Aspetta. Questa così, forse?
Ah, va meglio?
Sì, scusate.
No.
Ripeto, Great tales, epics such as Gilgamesh, the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the story of Noah have in turn created the founding myths of peoples that enabled us to recognize their origins. They are nothing more than fantastic and have faithful accounts of real events that are perhaps too harsh to be told as they really happened. Storytelling is fascinating, even when the subject matter is serious. They convey knowledge in a simple way and reach places that would otherwise be inaccessible. Storytelling enables us to empathize with events, to put ourselves in the shoes of the characters, and to understand them better. Let me introduce myself. I've been in museums since I was 16. I graduated in paleontology in Padua. In Pisa, I specialized in prehistoric science. I have been teaching for 40 years. Working with young people has made me realize that it's possible and necessary to awaken their interest in history. I combine this conviction with my other passion, writing. I use individual objects that stimulate my imagination, study the era to which they belong, and write about people I never knew, who may never have existed, but who may have lived and acted just like us. Thus arose the matron Gaia and the young Tricos, the leaders of the two routes of the X-Formal project, as we follow the first along the pathway through the Roman ruins and the second along the description carved on the stone, we see how the story of their lives spontaneously emerges, possible, even probable. lives that have disappeared into history, but are closer to us than the monuments themselves. In creating the narratives, the team considered that the narrative had to adhere to the game, not anticipate or reveal the answers. We had to respect the knowledge of scientific data now to date. In this way, I use objects to create possible stories and teach history. Some example. Starting from a fiction, the possible story of a Liberta, freedwoman, emerges, which led to its writing and then to its burial in Campiglia Marittima, Livorno. The bronze helmet found in Oppeano, Verona, inspired the creation of a story about the Venetians family. Fratesina, Rovigo, is known in the Bronze Age for its many handicrafts, including glass beads. Thus began the story of a woman who worked with this material. The pile dwelling of Yavè, Trentino, are the perfect setting for a story about everyday life between the mountains and the lake. Every discovery, every artifact that emerges from the ground, every place that is identified offers incredible insights. The hard part is telling it all. The stories multiply and the history become commonplace, easy to understand and easy to remember. Thank you. E scusate.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Scusate l'inglese che non c'è.
Don't worry, it is really, don't worry. It was comprehensible in any case, so don't worry. I just have, so we'll have, as I said, our space for questions, curiosities after this first session. Now there's just an emergency because Kuba Tokarski have to go after 4 p.m. So I hope is it okay for Sergio, but we'll switch the two of you, if that is okay, if instead of Sergio, now we'll speak Kuba Tokarski. Is okay for you, Sergio?
Not a problem for me.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Thank you very much.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Okay, so now we'll move to Poland for we'll see. It's a very special thing that Kuba will show us. So Kuba, the floor is yours, and we can listen to your experience now. You are muted.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I need to share my screen with you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I cannot find it.
You find the share button is green on the bottom in the
Okay.
and
Yeah.
you can share your full desktop or just a Windows if you have your presentation open elsewhere.
Do you see now?
No, we don't see your screen.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Did you choose the right screen? You have only one screen?
Yeah.
So that should be, yeah.
Now we
Okay.
see it. Now we see it is loading. Okay, now we see. If you can go in presentation mode, introduce yourself a little bit maybe, and then thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Is it for the whole screen right now? Because I don't
Yes.
see.
Yes,
Yeah?
it's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry for the inconvenience, but I don't really work with Zoom so much, so I kind of forget.
Don't worry.
Okay, guys, so I'm from Wrocław Institute of Culture. Kind of last minute here, but it was the topic very interesting from the side of this project. So Kuba Żary introduced me very quickly to this, and I'm here with you. The topic of my presentation is super different than the previous contributor. So I hope you will be also interested. But I think in the case of narratives, it's very on point project. So normally 5 days a week I work in the promotion side of Wrocław Institute of Culture, and last year we kind of started this project which is called School of Neighborhood Walks, but we are neighbors. We're all neighbors, and This is really the start of the whole school of neighborhood walks, and I will later tell you in a minute or two what is the school. But first, I wanted to start to let you know what is the where is it from? So the school was born from the idea, from the whole cycle of neighborhood trips, which is living now for like 8 years. It started as a very small project, kind of because of people were interested in trips in Wrocław, and getting to know local places, which is not so obvious, like the city centers and the historical buildings around the center. More about the suburbs and not so common areas of the city. So it started as a small project, but in 7 years we did, I will tell you some numbers, 90 trips. We had 30 guides. There was 4,000 people contributing, going for the walks. We visited 11 areas of the city. And also through the pandemic times, we did a series of like online neighborhood trips, which was watched by 200,000 people, more than 200,000 people. So it kind of grew with years. And after 7 years of this project, it kind of stuck with us that there is something more to do with it, because we used to work with like professional guides, people, you know, who studied history and normally like 5 days a week they work as guides. But people attending the walks, they were kind of curious and they were interested in sharing more with us and contributing more from their way. So it's the way that that we kind of born the idea of starting the school of neighborhood walks, which was more giving the space to the people who are not professional, uh, who are not so practiced with this, and they just wanted to share their stories, their small local communities, and it was a very kind of space to give to give space to talk and show their histories of the city and local citizens to the activists from the city that wanted to do something like this. So the whole neighborhood school of walks had some segments. We started with kind of schooling, of course. So there was 3 days of workshops with people who would professionally. Then we had lectures. We also had a study visit to Gdańsk, which is like kind of a center city for this kind of trips. Not so about the city center and this, you know, obvious areas, but more into to other smaller parts of towns, not so, like I said, obvious. Mm, and the result of the projects was we've got like 25 new guides for this kind of walks. They had to prepare their own walks through the city. And we did it. Last autumn, we had 12 trips. So this is kind of, this is to share what was the project about. And I think for this kind of topic, this is very important um, to think about the narrative. Like there is the whole theme here. So our main goal was to really make it accessible for everybody, to include all of the city, the activists, or the people who want to activate themselves and do something more, share their story. Mm, and to, of course, give them kind of skill set to be prepared to show this to other people, like kind of the walking etiquette, how to prepare your walk, uh, how to research for the history, but still make it very personal and very in your own way. So there is never two identical walks, even if it's in very the same area. There's always different stories, and it always very based on the perspective of people. I know there is this whole schedule, so I don't want to bother you too long. So if there is any questions, I'm happy to answer, but I think it's enough for this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kuba. Yes, this is very interesting because I don't know about the others, but I've never seen something similar to this because also what struck me is the fact that you said that every guided tour, let's say, it's unique, we can say, because everyone tells their own story, we can say, of the same neighbor but in different ways. So this is very interesting to hear. It makes us think a lot about how of the same place the narratives can change. You will not be here later, so I don't know if we have questions. Maybe we can ask to you them now. And I had just one question actually. If you noticed because you mentioned a lot of people, 20,000 people, so and 7 years of this project. So you noticed the change in the people attending this event, more engagement during the years. Is there something that it is something that makes the neighborhood change? It is a thing that change how the people think about their neighborhoods and so on.
Yeah, I think definitely you can see that in like last 5 to 10 years, maybe more like last five, that like the local communities is rising, and it's not only about the city center. I mean, it's probably the more common the more common example is like in Berlin you had or the other big cities you had these like small centers of the town in other departments of the city, not only in Market Square. So it's the same in Wrocław, I think. So it's the rising of other segments of town, and because of that, people want to activate themselves on other fields like this. Yeah.
Beautiful. This is very, very beautiful. I don't know if anyone else have a question for Kuba because he's leaving us. So if you have a question for him, just you can ask them now. If you want, Kuba, you can also put down your presentation. So if anyone wants to ask other questions for you, or we can otherwise proceed with the program.
Yeah, sure. I will share the presentation, no problem.
Okay. Tell me if you have problems with that.
Wait. Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. So are there any other questions as Kuba Tokarski is leaving? I don't know. Or if you're still thinking about it, we can proceed. So we will not change fully the program. We'll stick to the program for now. I asked Sergio Di Pasquale, he said that it's okay for him, so he will be in the second session, and now we will proceed, staying in Poland, so still, and we will have Agnieszka Smutek and Pranav Kelkar representing for us the Polish cinema for beginners. So guys, the floor is yours.
Hello, and that's me, Agnieszka Smutek, and Pranav. Maybe you want to say hello also.
Hello.
Let me just start with the sharing screen.
It's well equipped to tell stories, I see, with this great microphone. You are used to do it.
Yeah.
How to do that? Or maybe is it okay for you to say it like that You see
Yes, we
everything?
can see it. Not in a present. Now it's better. Way better. Okay.
Yes, okay. So yeah, I will start with the introduction. Hello everyone, once again, I'm Agnieszka Smutek. I'm a cultural practitioner based in Wrocław with a background in cultural studies from the University of Wrocław, where I focused on urban space and cultural transformations. Over the years, I collaborated with many cultural institutions and festivals, which is not the topic for today. Since 2022, I've been working with Polish Cinema for Beginners project. At its heart, the project isn't about the films, it's about the people, about how stories can bring us together. Today, Pranav and I are stepping in for Adam Kruk, who unfortunately couldn't be here with us, but we'll do our best to walk you through what we are building in Wrocław. Sorry. So Polish Cinema for Beginners began in 2012 as an initiative to introduce Polish film to international residents of Wrocław. What started as a kind of a loose niche project, screenings with English subtitles and small discussion afterwards, slowly grew into a cultural platform. Over time, the project has evolved from simply showcasing Polish cinema, using it as a mirror, reflecting identity, history, social tensions, and transformation. It became a space where shared watching turned into shared meaning making. The heart of our project, of course, consists of a carefully selected collection of Polish films, works that are not only cinematic achievements, but cultural documents in motion. From Andrzej Wajda's Men of Marble, a critique propaganda, to Boylesque, a tender portrait of an aging drag performer, these films are emotional terrain, accessible even when language fails. Our programming spans from historical epics like Potop to absurdist comedies like Miś, to chaotic social dramas like Wesele. Each film is chosen not simply to entertain the public, but to open a window into Polish memory, myth, and modernity. Through them, viewers are invited to engage with Poland, not as a place on a map, but as a mosaic of experience, contradictions, and emotion. Through the years, we had, as you can see on the slide, different topics and themes for every season. The themes where we explore through these films reflect the wide spectrum of Polish life and its entanglements with history. The films open up dialogues around deeply rooted topics like identity, resistance, loneliness, celebration. We dive into themes like communism, post-communism, urban alienation, LGBTQ+, visibility, youth culture, old age, and activism. These topics are familiar, not just to Poles, but to anyone navigating displacement, transformation, marginality, or moving into a new place. Cinema becomes a soft bridge, not to assimilate, but to resonate. So Polish cinema has long held a prominent place in world cinema with filmmakers like Polański, Kieślowski, or Holland, or Wajda, shaping the language of film beyond national borders. What we aim to do is to connect with this tradition, the contemporary questions. What does it mean to belong in a changing society? And how can stories, when shared across cultures, become a form of healing or something like that? These aren't just films for us, they're entry points into deeper dialogue. Our screenings are never passive. We invite filmmakers, scholars, journalists, artists, foreigners who are interested in topic, not to explain the films we are watching, but to help unfold its many possible meanings. Guests joining us to enrich the conversation and to shift the gaze from Polish cinema as a national art to Polish cinema as a dialogue partner for global questions. This exchange makes the room vibrate intellectually and emotionally, and of course, inviting such a prominent person as Agnieszka Holland gives us more reach. Who comes to our screenings? Students, expats, newcomers, Erasmus guests, NG workers, and many more. Many of them don't speak Polish or even English, but they want to understand the new place who they are in, the Poland. And cinema gives them that because it gives them the way to feel the temperature of society, its moods, its silences, and it describes them the environment, the new environment for them. Over time, our audience has grown into a community, one that watches together, talks together, and sometimes disagrees also together. The project also includes an educational components and integrational components, workshops, classes, lectures, guided discussions, going together into different places around the city. Participants don't just watch films, they create narratives of their own. This year, we are running some kind of a lab and a film discussion group where people from different backgrounds explored what stories mean in their own lives. So this is not about only explaining Poland and Polish cinema. It's about co-creating this information we are giving as a project. Through the years, as you can see, we've changed a lot because we started as a project who were based in the cinema, but through the years we went outside. We had also the podcast version because of the COVID, and over the years we just moved into this new form, which is more connected into workshop working and community making. What started as a one-way introduction to Polish culture has become a two-way street. Now we ask, how do our guests change the meaning of Polish cinema? How does a Syrian student read the Blind Chance film? How does a Ukrainian or any other artist respond to new Polish Ida Oscar-winning film? The integration isn't the top-down, it's a mutual, fluid, and unpredictable, and that's the beauty of it. So this is what you can see. This slide is named Class Off. This is the final slide of my part, and I will give the voice to Pranav. This is the living, evolving community of around Polish for beginners. This is, as you can see more, there's a cultural project. It's a laboratory of coexistence, a place where stories aren't only consumed, but absorbed and reframed. And they are helping people to feel more engaged in the new place they are in. So in the end, it's not only about watching, it's about becoming a part of the ongoing narrative of this country together. And in this place, I want to invite Pranav.
Yeah, hello. Hope you can hear me clearly. Yeah, so I joined Polish Cinema for Beginners last year as a participant. And as Agnieszka mentioned, we have participants and we have audience. I'm more of the participant side, so I'm helping organize these screenings and we discuss activities and introduction and so on. So this is our current year's theme. We have 21st century is our theme for this year. We talk about like important, say, movies and events in the 21st century through our movies. Next slide. So this is like how generally our screening session looks like. We have an introduction before the movie, then we show the movie itself, and then we finish it off with an activity. So these activities are very it depends on the movie itself, but we as participants, helped by our wonderful like organizing team, we decide what activities can be shown with which movie. And all of these parts we do to create narratives. And these narratives are of two forms. So we first have one narrative that's about cinema itself, about Polish cinema and the sort of landscape in Polish cinema, and about Polish culture as well. So first, focusing on just Polish cinema, I can give example of one of our themes, our theme last year, which was yesterday, today, tomorrow. And for this, the organizers first chose these three movies. So it's A Man of Marble by Vaida in 1977, Sweat by Magnus von Horn in 2020, and Last Spark of Hope by Pietro Piedron in 2023. These movies, after each screening, as participants, we got to find out how you can create narrative. So just about the Polish cinema scene in general. So this one of the aspects of this is we had Andrzej Wajda, who's a legend in Polish cinema. Then we have Magnus Horn, who is gaining a lot of popularity slowly. He had a very interesting movie recently called The Girl with the Needle, internationally acclaimed, and Pietro Biedron, which was relatively new Polish director. So it's not just about Poland, but it's also about Polish cinema. And so using that, us participants, in the second half of the year, we had the opportunity to create our own program. So we chose Blind Chance, All These Sleepless Nights, and Boylesque. We get these ideas on how to create these narratives about Polish cinema through our organizers, and then we do these screenings. And that's just about Polish cinema. And the next part, when we go to talking about, since movies are inherently narrational, we use these as a storytelling tool to paint a portrait of Poland, or we use these to show aspects of Poland. So next slide. So the next one, for instance, when we chose Przypadek, the Blind Chance, the movie, as participants, we have these themes of how Poland looked like in the 80s, about like political themes of communism and anti-communist resistance movements, and also domestic and religious life in Poland. So these were the themes that were talked about in the movie itself. The next one, when we had All These Sleepless Nights, we were talking about parties and loneliness and like student life in Poland. And we had, this is an example where we can bring in the idea of activities. So the activity we chose after the movie for this, we had a small stand about and a small talk about safe partying and about how essentially how to party safely. And then we did throw a small party. So these movies are then used as a tool for just promoting culture, and then are furthermore as a tool for integration. The next one that we had in our season was Boylesque, which was about I believe it's Poland's oldest drag queen. And it's about, LGBTQ plus community. It's about growing old. Again, of course, activism and politics, and about drag. And so that already paints a picture of Poland. We also chose the activity. We got a drag king to perform, and we had a small interview with them. And so this it gives another dimension to the movies already seen, and it gives more information, and it provides a higher chance for foreign audience or audiences who are new to Polish cinema in general to connect with the space they're in a way, just being here as foreigners, or like to find some more attachment in a way to the space. And so it also allows, since it's a drag show, they'd allow for integration as well, or like some talking among themselves. And so, yeah, through these, we have the last slide. So we do create, through Polish Cinema for Beginners, we create narratives about cinema itself or through cinema. These are the two narratives we choose to create. And as for further ways that we are gonna, like our future steps, let's say, we are planning on doing some trips and wait, Aga, next slide. So yeah, we did go on some trips. We went to see some cinemas in Poznań to sort of connect not just Polish cinema, but again, tie a lot of threads together, basically.
Pranav, you muted
Yes,
yourself.
sorry. Yeah, my bad. And with Hania, who's in the picture on the left, me and her are planning to start a podcast on Polish cinema. So these are more ways of enhancing narratives through cinema, essentially. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Agnieszka and Pranav. This was inspiring, and I'm saying this also because I know Polish cinema for beginners. I know Pranav well. And so I'm very happy to have had you both here today because, as I said, I had the chance to experience firsthand what Polish cinema for beginners creates, and I can say it is a truly magical space of inclusion and beauty. I experienced it while I was in Wrocław a few months ago with the informal project, and it's wonderful to see how, in this case, the love for cinema, but in general for culture, can bring people together and foster a sense of community and belonging. This is a very beautiful thing. And
If I could only one thing
Sure.
to add, because even being here today with Pranav is a part of this creating narrative.
yes,
That's-
exactly.
That's the last thing I wanted to say. Thank you.
Exactly. And this is really beautiful. I really appreciate it. It's true. It really is. So thank you, guys. And so we've ended our first session, and we can open the floor for any questions or curiosity. I don't know if there's anyone that likes to ask something. For now, I have a few questions, but I let you first go with any thought, just also thoughts, curiosities, if anyone wants to add something. Simona, please. Thank you. You're muted, Simona.
Yes, I thought about what the last speaker told, especially Agnieszka, and this interesting thing about she spoke about the possible meanings, several meanings of each film, and I reflected on the fact that a narrative is a part of the story. It always reflects a part, explains, tells a part of the story, but in turn, the narratives can bring to several interpretation of itself. So I'm moving always farther from the truth, from the reality of the truth which is told, because the film is a part of the truth. And reflecting on the several meanings, once the film has become a piece of art from itself, it's separated almost from the filmmaker, from the reality, and it can be interpreted in various ways, and it produces several narratives. Because if I tell the film to someone, I tell my story, what I have seen of the film, what I have catched, what I have reflected about. And if someone else tells the story with another background, with another frame, he can tell another history. And 2 days ago, I heard about a film from Wes Anderson, The Last of Phoenicians or so on. And I heard in a program two speakers, two journalists, who gave a total different meaning and appreciation of the film. So the one, it was one of the best film of Wes Anderson. It is wonderful. It goes farther to his way of narrative. These characters are so fixed, are so immobile in the expressions and so on. And the other journalist made exactly the contrary. This is the worst film I've seen of Wes Anderson. So it's interesting that each piece, and I reflect on what that means for the studies of the ancient world, where each of us gives its own history about a vase, about a grave effect, a monument, a sanctuary. And often also in the scientific world, we gave several different opinions and versions of the same. I would like to reflect with you about this. So Agnieszka and Pranav, if you have something
I'm not, maybe if you could summarize what you are asking, like in general, because I have troubles to maybe catch it.
Yes, there are several versions.
Yes.
Several interpretation and meanings of the same film, and the film is for itself a part of the original story, of the original meaning. So to the referring story. What do you think about this multiplicating of several meanings in story
in my opinion, in film, it is the part of the film as a medium of a story, and we use this as an opportunity to integrate with different people from very different cultural cycles, because it's fun, it's easy. The film is an easy medium, very accessible for a wide range of cultures or languages, because it's visual, because it's kind of general also, it's visuality. So for our purpose in our project, this is the medium which is giving us the opportunity to give the new people, the new inhabitants of our city. I need to check the English word. To give the agency to the people who are participating in our project, because through the agency we can give them safety to participate in our society. So maybe I hope it is a good answer for your question, but maybe Pranav wants to add something as well.
I mean, I don't know if I have much to add. I think it's true what you said, that perspectives play an important role. I mean, like movies or even any form of media in a way, when you do have these narrations, right? Like it's really hard to, anytime a story is being told about something, like there is always some loss of information that could lead to, well, different perspectives in a way. That loss of information is in when you experience movies or any forms of media as well. And it's interesting how that sort of shows itself with different cultural backgrounds and different, let's say, if you're in a different headspace. We had a movie screening called Day of the Wacko this year. And it's a classic Polish movie, and it's about this person who has OCD and deeply troubled, and it was about daily frustrations in his life. And some people thought it's very funny, and it was a very comedic movie. But me watching it, I was going through a stressful period, so the movie just stressed me out even more. And yeah, it's just very interesting when you have these gaps that are created from telling a story with different formats, and these are filled in a way from personal experiences. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And through these gaps, which are filled by our participants, we can see what story they are bringing in, even if they are not capable of telling it. So through the discussions after movies or through the programming with foreigners, we can see their story reflecting in the way they are responding, talking about it, choosing the next screening.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. If I'm legitimate to say that, we can say it's kind of like going to the psychologist. It depends also by your mood, so we can say it's kind of related. But I was you used a lot of sentences, but one in particular struck me because you said before we are here not just to engage but to resonate. And this is gives me chills because it's important. It's a very important thing. How narratives in this case really build bridges, you know. And I had just a curiosity for you. The curiosity is mine. So because I was there with you a few months ago, and I was thinking, what are you up to in the next months? Is the class of the year finished, or have you something?
No, it's not finished. It's in the middle.
Okay.
This year, me as a coordinator, I want really Pranav. I already told to Pranav, but all the class is waiting for the next meeting for me to say it. But I am right now in the process of inviting a person who is responsible of programming the festival selection of the short movies here in Lower Silesia to teach the class how it's done, so they could do this to present their own selection. So we are trying to give them more tools to think in the wider sense with the narration of the projects, to give them the tools. So yes, we are in the middle, and the next part of the year will be fully programmed by our new class, and we are gaining more public as well. So yeah, I guess Pranav can also share his thoughts, because he is the participant of the project I am on the next year.
Yeah, we do have more stuff coming up, and I love it as a space to be able to like create our own events through it as well. Like as I mentioned in the presentation, like Hania and I are gonna start a podcast about Polish cinema for beginners, and so we will use that to like it is gonna be similar to the screenings in a way where we do have an introduction and we have a discussion and about it in a way, and so it's exciting. It's super exciting. I love the initiative, and it's so fun to be a part of it.
Yeah, the podcast part they are making, it warms my heart because it worked. You know, it works. The idea works. The new people, new foreigners are working on their own ideas, creating narratives about what they are experiencing here in our country.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you, guys. Really.
Thank you.
And I have another question. I have, for example, a question for Emanuela, Gilli, but I don't know if there are any other questions from people who are connected. If you want.
I suggest to postpone that to the last, because we are already really out of time. So at the end, I have also a question for Montebelluna. If you stay.
Yes, I'm sorry, but because I don't live here, but in Venice, so my train is leaving around 6 o'clock p.m. So I don't know.
Okay, we hope to.
Okay.
Yes, so I will stay here until 5:45.
Maybe we can manage to have our final discussion by 6. I guess if we reduce our pause, we have.
No, I don't want to. to yes, force the
No, it's
time, the
okay.
schedule.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
No,
The next
maybe
1
it's
hour.
better to if someone has any question, maybe it's better now than later because I really don't know if
Okay,
I will
okay.
be available.
So-
I'm sorry, and I see that Gabriella Bosmin is here with us. So.
Okay. So please, Federica, first yours.
Okay. I have a really short question. So, because I was particularly struck by how you use these narrative techniques in the exhibition, the books, ideas, and so I don't know if you can tell us a little bit more about how you choose the different stories to highlight, or if you've chosen all the situlas. I didn't got this perfectly. So, and in these cases, how you balance the archaeological accuracy with the storytelling dimension. So in the books, I mean, and in these cases, or if you found cases that were really in some parts difficult to convey in a book. Thank you.
Oh, that's very easy to answering your question because we simply use the scientific text. So the scientific description of the complex images of the two situlas. They are split in 3 rows. And every line tells something. But the starting point was the scientific paper, where you can find the one is written by Giovanna Gambacurta, and it is published in Studi Etruschi, La Rivista di Studi Etruschi. But if you like, I can give you the bibliography. And the other one was this is the material I gave Gabriella, asking her, please rewrite this description because it's very very detailed. Everything is very well explained, but just for a high public, not high, but a acculturated public, in our opinion. And we wanted to try something new, and we choose the albo, we call albo illustrato in English. I don't know, illustrated book or a picture book, because we are used to use it in our archaeological educational project, because we work with our colleagues in of the library, the public library here in Montebelluna, and we are always working together. So this is a sort of contamination of languages. So they often come here with their illustrated books, and sometimes we go to the library with our artifacts. So we are used to share very different meaning tools, we can say. So, but if you like, we can ask Gabriella, maybe from her point of view, because that's very important. Because my ask was very simple. Please help us to tell this story in a different way, using your tools, your style, your experience. And if you want to ask, it's better if you ask her something. Maybe you can translate if she's not speaking English.
Okay. I don't know if Gabriella wants to add something. Gabriella Bosmin, anzitutto benvenuta e grazie per esserti collegata. So welcome and thank you. And so now I'm a little bit more aware of the fact that you choose books because I now you mentioned that you work with the public library.
Yes.
So that's
And maybe I didn't say that Gabriella told the whole story of Situla. We didn't choose anything.
Vedo un messaggio. I see a message from Gabriella, scusate, ma non conosco
Gabriella, puoi parlare italiano e noi
No, è il
traduciamo.
microfono, mi sa.
Devi attivare il microfono.
C'è l'icona del microfono in basso a sinistra.
Che cosa hai domandato, non capendo niente dell'inglese, mi trovo in
Sì,
difficoltà.
la mia domanda era appunto, diciamo, come se a volte ci sono state delle difficoltà nel convogliare in questi piccoli libricini l'accuratezza scientifica, archeologica, se appunto a volte ci sono stati delle difficoltà nel trasmutare questo, ecco, tutto qui.
Allora, io scrivo queste cose da tanti anni e prima di cimentarmi a scrivere un lavoro come quello che ho fatto per il Museo di Montebelluna, mi devo, come si dice, informare su quello che è il racconto storico, quello che è veramente stato scoperto dagli archeologi, dagli storici, eccetera. E poi, una volta che ho assimilato tutte le informazioni, con le mie ricerche, dopo le trasformo in racconto. Questo oramai mi è semplice perché io ho scritto tanti racconti per i bambini, anche per gli adulti, ma soprattutto per i bambini, quindi so entrare nel loro linguaggio, so che cosa li attira. Quando Manuela mi ha chiesto di scrivere questi due racconti, mi aveva detto, non so se ve l'ha già detto, mi aveva chiesto di usare un linguaggio che fosse comprensibile per tutte le persone che non hanno niente a che fare con la storia e con i bambini, per cui il pubblico normale. E quindi, basandomi su quelle che erano le illustrazioni delle tre fasce, io ho messo in dialogo facendo in modo che le situle stesse raccontassero che cosa rappresentavano. Quindi non ci sono state difficoltà per me, almeno non in questo momento.
Grazie mille.
Grazie Gabriella.
Se posso intervenire in italiano però.
Prima traduciamo quello che ha
Sì,
detto.
sì.
We'll translate for everyone. So I asked Gabriella about any difficulties that she may have encountered in, traducing the archaeological accuracy in these little books, and she said that she goes into a phase of study first, and that's why with the studies she encounters before, she then later she never went through big difficulties, also because she's used to translate the normal and academical language into a language for kids. So that's why. And thank you, Gabriela Bosmin, for your.
Yes, if I can add something, the important, and I underlined that we didn't ask a book for kids, but for everybody,
For everyone, yes.
for adults. This is, I think, it's important to.
Yes, the books are for everybody, but because of
yes, her experience.
Yes, because of the experience with the kids, it was even easier. Yes, for sure. Thank you very much. Please, Giuliana Borghesani.
Volevo concordare col fatto che quando si racconta qualcosa di storico, prima bisogna sapere cos'è scientifico, no? Non si va avanti. Io sono stata fortunata perché i miei studi più l'esperienza a scuola più la passione dello scrivere è diventato un tutt'uno, ma è così. Io di solito parto dall'oggetto, perché toccare, vedere l'oggetto è molto più vicino di un'idea e quindi dall'oggetto si arriva al racconto. Basta.
Thank you. I'll translate for the others. Giuliana Borghesani was saying that her approach is usually to start from the object in the narrative, and of course she was highlighting it when one starts from the study before, then of course the difficulties that we may encounter are way less, because there's an archaeological and rigorous scientific studies before, and then the narrative behind. So that's in most of the cases, of course, the process of behind this type of narrations. So thank you to you all. I don't know if there are any other questions. Otherwise, we can go through our coffee break. Okay.
Question.
Giuliana, please.
However, I don't know whether my question wouldn't be too difficult. Let's see. I have a question. What is the formula for crafting a narrative that is interesting, but it's yet not imposing, overly imposing? By imposing, I mean imposing certain vision of the word.
This is a very hard question. Who are you asking? It's a general thought, you mean?
It's a general thought, but this question stems from my experience, because many times as a visitor, as a museum visitor, I was confronted with the fact that I felt overbearing presence of a narrative, which frequently, in my vision, was overly emotional, and that was, for me, at least for me, it was disturbing. Here, I only enhance the value, negative value in my understanding of emotions, but I guess that there might be other factors.
What you say, it's super right, because I told about this in the introduction I had before, because sometimes narratives can be political, can be overwhelming, and as also Simona was telling before about the cinema, there's not a unique way of doing narratives, and that's the point, I guess. And so it depends from the mood that you're in, the mood in which you that are producing the narrative. And so maybe your question doesn't have an answer, I'm afraid, because
Can I suggest, since in the second part we will have also Alessandro Castellano's talk about the experience in the museums, I would leave this topic as interesting starting point for our discussion later. If Joanna, you can stay longer, of course. Okay, that's very interesting question.
Yes, it is indeed.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start from here again in our final discussion. So we'll take our break we can grab a coffee, stretch our legs. Now we call this bio pause. So I don't know if I have to use this term now. It's a new way of saying
bio pause.
Bio pause.
Coffee and other things.
Coffee and other things.
Okay. So we meet
I don't
again.
Know 15 or 20 minutes. Simona, what do you think?
We are a little bit late. I don't know if people have to go away then. So I suggest 10 minutes.
Okay. So 10 minutes pause, and then we'll be here again for our second session. I'll just because there been an adjustment. So we will have Alessandro Castellano from University of Genova. Instead of Kuba Tokarski, we will have Sergio Di Pasquale Luci, and then Professor Giovanni Mastronuzzi from University of Salento. So we'll see you here again in 10 minutes. Thank you.
See you soon.
See you. Hope you had a So now we're ready to continue with our final part of our program, and welcome here to speak Alessandro Castellano from the University of Genova. And like before, I kindly ask you to introduce yourself before we dive into your experience, and thank you very much, Alessandro.
Okay, thank you to you, Federica, and thank you to Simona for inviting me to this presentation. I'm Alessandro Castellano from University of Genoa. I work for the university press of our university, and so I'm quite involved in bookmaking or things like that. And the experience Federica and Simona asked me to tell you is about a novel I was reading and I found quite interesting. Probably most of you know already it, so will be storytelling about this experience I had with the book, and I hope you will enjoy anyway. So let's share.
And Alessandro created the graphics for the project. He's, of course, a partner of the project. Belongs to University of Genoa, who is the leader of the project.
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
my role in informal is I'm involved in the graphic design of the everything visual or not almost everything, let's say.
Yes.
Okay, so the book I want to talk about is this one, The Museum of Innocence by Orhan Pamuk. As you know, Orhan Pamuk is a Nobel Prize for Turkey a few years ago for his main novel, Istanbul. And this book, a little bit as Istanbul, is a kind of sort of diary and a novel mixed together. This experience, The Museum of Innocence, is a quite different story because it's a novel. It tells the story of a love story of Kemal, that is a rich man of Istanbul, living in Istanbul in the 50s, that is almost close by to be married with another woman, but he fell in love with a kind of relative person. It's a cousin, but different occasion, quite younger than the other. So he lived this story apart just before getting married, and he dreamed about the possibility to share life with the lover and the wife together, but things go a little bit differently. The most interesting things about the book that it has also a meta story inside, because Orhan Pamuk arrived at a certain point as a guest at the fiance party. And engagement party. So at a certain point, you start having question, but I'm reading something that is real or is just a poor invention. And going on with the novel, I'm not gonna tell you everything about the love story, love affair in the novel, because it's quite interesting. But almost at the end of the book, the main character Kemal asked to Orhan Pamuk to build a museum where he wants to tell this love affair he tell in the novel itself. And so what happened that if you go to Istanbul, you can find the Museum of Innocence. That's actually a building, this red building in a suburb that supposedly is the last house where the lover of Kemal lived. And in the novel, Kemal said that he bought this house to make it a museum, and so asked to Pamuk to build it. And it's quite an experience to arrive there, because inside the museum, inside the novel, he described the museum itself. And when you go inside the museum, you can exactly experience what it tells in the book. And on the last floor, there is a kind of a collection of all the translation of the book itself. So it's the museum of the story of narrated in the book, but at the same time of the book itself and of the museum itself. So it's very expanding things. But the most surprising things that makes the experience a kind of, I say like a never-ending story for adults, that when you read the book, at a certain point in the book, you can find this part that allowed you to have a free entrance to the museum if you arrive with the book itself. So it's kind of invitation to read a book in paper, to have also access to the museum itself. And as you can see on the background, there is this wall full of cigarettes, because the museum is a collection of objects in any kind, okay? So also used cigarettes became a kind of memory of this relationship, because the character says that during the years he was meeting this girl, he started collecting every single cigarette, and for every cigarette he put a note. You can not, yeah, probably you can see that there are some writing on it, and it's the main wall of the first floor is completely covered with this installation. Okay, but the other detail that is interesting, you can see that the stamp that they put on the book is this symbol of a butterfly. Okay, that actually is the first object in the story. For every chapter, they made a window in the museum containing the objects that are described or are part of the chapter of the book. Okay, so this one is an earring that she lost at the first meeting with Kemal, and it kind of take hidden from her in order to keep her with him. Okay, so this one is the symbol of their love, what they link them together. And as a reader of the book, when I first time in front of this window, this object that is quite simple is nothing really special. It became a kind of magical things. It moved me. Joanna, you were talking about emotion. For me, it was amazing. I was almost crying in front of this, because the power of what Orhan Pamuk built with this experience, the book and the museum, it's incredible. And just to show you the windows that he prepared, this one is one of the last chapter in the book. And in the museum, you have the plan, the drawing of Pamuk, because he designed all the windows also. So it's not only the author of the novel, it's not all the man who realized the museum, but it's also the designer who put on the museum itself. So for every chapter, what he used to say is like collect the object, as you can see in this window, that is the chapter 73, as you can see on the bottom part. And the building, as you have seen from the outside, is not a huge one. So you don't have to think about a big museum. It's actually an house, a typical house in Istanbul. So it's on 3 levels. And for each level, you have this kind of disposition. And in here, you can see exactly the number of the chapter and the object contained inside. What is the interesting part? That most of the objects are just, not always there is a full description of the object. Sometimes it's just an idea of the object inside the chapter. But when you go to visit the museum, it's like to read again the book, because these objects are chosen just to be representative of what is narrated in the novel. Okay. And as you can see, they are not really special objects. Sometimes are very usual, simple object. This one it was kind of a prize for a bingo game they were playing in the novel. But the main character, he tried to collect this object in order to preserve the memory of the lover. And so every single object reminds him a moment in his life with her. So also the most simple one. But the good things is that if you have read something about Pamuk, that is very, very linked to his city. So sometimes the impression reading the book or visiting the museums it's like Pamuk, the writer, is kind of to make a memory of the city itself. So it's like Istanbul, it's the real lover of the novel, okay? Because what we discover from these windows is how was the life in Istanbul in the 50s, okay? So what was traditional or what was usual to do in this period. It took this specific period of the life in Istanbul because it was a big change in economic situation and things like that. So it's not like to take a period. It was a typical period, but for the people living in Istanbul, okay? Because for us, for example, when we think about Istanbul, we think about the past, the sultans and things like that. Instead, for them, it's really important what happened after Ataturk. So it's the modern Istanbul, okay? And on the last floor, just close by the windows with all the books, all the edition of the book, there is a bedroom that in the novel is the bedroom where the character spends his last days before he decided to transform the house in the museums. So it's quite a surprise to arrive at the last floor and you can find the complete room with everything as it is described in the book itself. And not only the Museum of Innocence is a book, is a real museum, but Pamuk also wrote the catalog of the museum that is called The Innocence of Objects. So I'm happy I arrived just at the end of the last discussion because you were talking about the importance of starting from objects. And that's what Pamuk was doing. The main core of all these things about the novel and the museum is to try to make objects talk about a story, okay? But in this case, it's not historical object, it's everyday objects. And there is a reason for this, because Pamuk wrote this manifesto for museums. So in his idea is not only to make this experience of a novel that you never know if it's real or not what it tells. And also in the catalog, sometimes he say that he gives you input that is all invention. But sometimes he say that Kemal, the main character of the book, was really talking with him. So he described the situation like he was really talking with the main character. So it takes the border between reality and invention always in the middle. So you never discover exactly what happened. And that's what makes the experience even stronger. But why Pamuk started with this idea? In his mind, there is a clear idea of what a museum has to be in a reality like the one of Turkish for Turkey, because what he say that they used to follow what is a European style museum, okay, with big artists and things like that. But the Turkish culture doesn't have this kind of culture. It's different from European one. So he say we don't have to try to tell our story in the way they used to do in other countries. We have to find our way to tell the story. And so this one are different point to tell the story, but just to resume you, this is the last part where it makes the difference about what we had as a museums and what they need as a Turkish people for a museums. So for example, if they, from one end, we have epics, okay? We have big stories, big myths and things like that, that are behind the story. You can find, for example, in European museums. And you say, we have novels, Okay, so we reduce kind of the scale of everything. For me, for example, the most important thing is the difference between histories and stories. Okay, so from collective to individual, and that's exactly what he do in the novel. He decided to tell the story of Kemal, and to use small object, and especially the last part, as you can see, is small and cheap. It gives the opportunity with the book to have a free entrance to the museum itself. And the other things is the importance of the collection of objects. To build the museums, he said that he went inside the second-hand shops around Istanbul, just looking for objects that can fit the idea he had from the novel. But as I told you, he never discovered his cards, so you never know if he collected the object before or after the writing of the novel. But for him, it's very important to give importance to collection itself. During the project, I was in Barcelona. And in Barcelona, there is a big museum just close by the cathedral. I don't remember the name, but it's a museum of objects. Okay, it's a crazy museum. It seems like a Wunderkammer of objects, and every room is organized with object of the same kind altogether. In this case, it's interesting because you can find collection of almost everything, but you miss the what happened in a Museum of Innocence, a narration, something that drives you through the windows to help you to understand what you have in front of you. So the project of Pamuk is, I think, it's interesting for our point of view, just because it helps you to understand how a story can help to focus also on objects that don't have a real value. Okay, we normally take in consideration a big value in culture, big value in economic point of view, but sometimes also simple objects can make sense in this way. Also, if it's invention, okay, and the good things is that also if the story of Kemal is unreal, is an invention, it's still real, the story of the object. Okay, the objects were used in that period for that reason, as described in the book. So it's still a way back on reality. Okay, that is Simona, also what we archaeologists normally do. You cannot be sure about something, but you can have an history behind an object just to figuring out the use of it. So I think this is the power of narration, and it's interesting to have this kind of example of something that is very modern, and it's not something far away, because sometimes to try to imagine something that is far away helps us to feel it like real or not real, because it's too difficult to imagine. I think about as Giovanna say, for people that are not experts, and you go inside this kind of museum, they can tell whatever you want, because probably for me, for example, I don't have the instruments to say if it's true or not. I just accept that. But in this case, instead, you have a kind of feeling that is close by to you. So maybe you don't know the object in the way it's described, but the story helps you to be involved. So, for example, as I told you, the hearings at the beginning is something that just kills you because it's incredible. And of course, also the wall of cigarettes, that is something that when you think about it, it seems like what kind of a collection it is. But when you discover the reason why Kemal started collecting it, and for him, every single cigarette, the mark of the lipstick on the cigarettes, it's important because it's his way to remember a person that we don't know if it's real or not. And I'm not going to tell you the story. So you have to discover it. And I suggest, if you want to do this experience, to read the book and then to go visit the museum. It will be a very nice surprise. So I think I'm in time, and I finished with my presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alessandro. This is also the second time for me hearing Alessandro speaking about this, because we had a conversation long time before about this, and every time he gives me chills telling about this strange museum. And also when listening to this story by you, one realizes how much the narrative power of a museum can transcend, even the objects themselves, even though it's from the object that, they open a world here. And it's fascinating to see, to think of a museum not just as a place to see things, but as a place to feel things and emotions. That's what this type of museum does. It's an example of how personal narratives can connect people to a cultural experience, even if it's outside their own history or identity, and also it's something that is fictional, probably. We don't know, but it's probably fictional. So beautiful. Thank you very much. Of course, we'll have later time for questions, curiosity. So we'll move to our next speaker. And now from Turkey, we move to Italy. We have Sergio Di Pasquale Luci, who is a reporter and screenwriter, and he will introduce himself better for sure. So Sergio, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm sorry I didn't put any pics and image in the slide.
It's okay, don't worry. You find the share button in the middle, is the green one.
Keynote? No. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm late.
Don't worry.
Okay, I have to. No, tardi. It doesn't let me to share the. Oh no. Okay.
Now we see. We can see it.
You see it? Yeah.
Now we see it.
Ok.
Puoi attivare la presentazione, la modalità presentazione, così lo vediamo in tutto lo schermo. La riproduci sopra il triangolino verso destra.
Ok.
Perfetto, grazie.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here today. Before I begin, I love me to briefly introduce myself. My name is Sergio Di Pasquale Luci. Over the past 20 years, I've worked as a storyteller in many different media. I've been a copywriter in advertising agency. Do you hear me? Is fine? It's fine? Okay. I have been copywriting advertising agencies, creating campaigns that promoted everything from pasta brands to recycling awareness initiatives. I work as a writer and editor in television and radio newsroom, turning complex events into stories that audience could understand, from local art exhibitions to the latest news from around the world. For several years, I also served as a communication manager, press office, for a non-governmental organization in Africa and Asia, with particular focus on children and their education and health. I have also written scripts for television series, bringing everyday characters to life on screen. And in the last years, I worked as a reporter for news agencies and media outlets, investigating stories and writing articles that reach thousands of readers, from banking and financial scandals to major police operations against organized crime. All these jobs might seem very, very different from one another, but they all have something in common. They all involve taking reality and transforming it into a narrative. At this point, some questions are necessary. It is always possible to capture the reality, not in my experience. This stems from various reasons. In advertising, for example, reality is often the last concern. When writing a script, you can choose to ignore reality and still create a story that seems believable and rooted in reality. And in journalism, although reality is very crucial in this case, capturing it is not always straightforward and obvious. Limited time can be a factor, as can sources who don't fully explain to the reporter what happened, because sometimes they don't even know themselves. Personally, I have come to the conclusion that in many cases you can only capture fragments of reality. This is well expressed by one of the most important photographers of the 20th century, Saul Leiter. I think most of you, they know who was Saul Leiter. Photography can also be a narrative, not only written text, also photography and movies, of course. When using the camera to tell stories, Leiter say that his photographs are the smallest part of what he sees that could be photographed. They are fragments of infinite possibilities. And again, as the Leiter put it, there are things that are out in the open, and then there are the things that are hidden. And life has more to do, the real world has more to do with what is hidden. The fragments of reality can be always transformed into narrative, while what is hidden may remain invisible even to the narratives. I don't know if the slide is working. Is working?
No, siamo sempre alla prima.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Do you see this? Do you see the slide?
Yes, now we see.
Okay, sorry. I never use Keynote, PowerPoint, so I'm just a very rookie beginner with PowerPoint. I'm sorry.
Thank you anyway.
So now you might wonder what all this has to do with the narration of cultural heritage. In my opinion, everything, I'd say. When we talk about cultural heritage, we are essentially talking about stories from the past that we choose to preserve, remember, and pass on to future generations. But just like in my work across different media, these stories of cultural heritage are also fragments of reality, shaped by the people who tell them. Before continuing with some examples, it's important to understand why narratives are so fundamental to cultural heritage. First, narratives create emotional connection. People remember a story, not isolated dates or facts or data. When we visit Pompeii, just an example, it's not the population figures of the year of the eruption that strike us, but the stories of the people buried by the eruption of Pompeii. These stories allow us to feel a human connection across the centuries. Second, narratives make the past accessible. A good story translates cultural heritage into modern language, bringing it closer to young people and non-experts. A 15th century fresco might seem distant and from a modern eyes, but when we tell the story or who commissioned it, the artist who painted it, the message they wanted to communicate, it suddenly becomes relevant to contemporary life and eyes. Third, narratives enhance identity.
Le diapositive, Sergio, non ti
scordare. Sorry. I told you, I'm a rookie. Sorry.
Forse sei andato ancora avanti.
Ok.
Okay.
I'm very sorry, but I never use Keynote or PowerPoint. Third, narratives enhance identity. They strengthen the sense of belonging to a community or culture. When a community tells its heritage stories, it's not only preserving the past, it's defining who it is today, who it wants to be tomorrow. Let me give you some concrete examples of how these dynamics have worked in my experience. A few years ago, I worked on an advertising campaign for a traditional pasta producer in Italy. The client wanted to emphasize their centuries-old family tradition. I was asked to write copy that linked their product to authentic Italian heritage. But when I researched the history, I discovered something interesting. Yes, the family had been making pasta for several generations, but the traditional shapes they were famous for, no, they were invented in the 60s. The ancient family recipe for their tomato sauce included ingredients that only became available in Italy after the World War II. Was this dishonest? Not exactly. The family had truly preserved and adapted traditional techniques. They maintained a connection to their local food culture. But the story of the unchanging tradition was like a photograph, only a small fragment of a much more complex reality. My working for an NGO taught me that another crucial lesson about fragments and narratives. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This.
Don't worry.
Useful. My time working for an NGO taught me another crucial lessons about fragments narratives. When we documented projects in Africa and Asia, we constantly faced many difficult choices about which stories to tell, but because we were active in countries where there was a strong censorship. For example, we purchased medical equipment for hospitals in Africa. For our donors, we had to tell stories that inspired them. So we focused only on successes, life-saving surgeries, mothers giving birth safely, communities gain access to healthcare. These stories were true, but they were fragments. We didn't talk about equipment breaking down, the lack of staff able to repair it, or communities where our intervention disrupt traditional practices without providing adequate alternatives. We were choosing which fragments of reality to show and which to leave in the shadows. This is exactly what happens with cultural heritage. What does all this mean for those of us who work with heritage narratives? First, we must be honest. We always select and interpret through our own subjective lenses of the world. We are not neutral reporters. We are active creators of meaning. Our choices shape how people understand the past. Second, we need to reflect on which fragments are preserved and which are forgotten. Traditional narratives have focused on kings, heroes, powerful men, and extraordinary lives. Fragments of ordinary lives, workers, women, minorities, have been less likely to survive. Third, we should welcome multiple points of view. The Colosseum can be a monument of engineering, a symbol of power, the greatness of Rome, a place of entertainment, but also a site of suffering, death. All are valid. Fourth, this is crucial for our daily work, we must create spaces and tools for communities to tell their own stories. Our role should not only be as interpreters, but also as facilitators. I'm sorry.
Sei recidivo, Sergio.
Sono recidivo, sorry. when we create narratives about the past, we have multiple responsibilities to historical accuracy, to the communities presented, to our audiences, to future generations. These responsibilities sometimes conflict. They are not easy answers, but recognizing the dilemmas is the first step. Is the first step to managing them in a responsible way. A question I always ask myself: does the narrative I'm creating empower or disempower the community I'm talking about? Does it reinforce stereotypes or challenge them? Does it build bridge or walls? A complex case, in my opinion, we talked with Simona. That's a topic that she knows very well. It's the case of the Etruscans. Recently, several interesting books have explored the impact of the Etruscans on contemporary culture. In 20th century art, for example, artists like Alberto Giacometti and Marino Marini were strongly influenced by Etruscan art. In Milano, the Fondazione Rovati is currently hosting an exhibition titled Etruscans of the 20th Century. However, the most surprising data concerns cinema. Alessandro Palmieri, an archaeologist, has just published a book revealing that the Etruscans refer in as many as 213 films. That's a very, very huge number. So, surprisingly, most of these are thrillers, horror movies, not historical films about the Etruscans, unlike what happens with other ancient people. Yet the Etruscans remain one of the best studied for Roman population modern scholarship. As Palmieri points out, these movies reveal less about the Etruscans as they really were, and more about what the Etruscans mean to us today, often relying on a common stereotypes rather than archaeological facts. Cinema often draws from novels of fictional literature, which helps create a narrative foundation. For a long time, the mysterious aura surrounding the Etruscans and the uncertainty of their origin influenced their cinematic portrait. However, these ideas now survive more in popular imagination than in modern research, which are corrected many misconceptions. I often discuss with screenwriters the challenge of telling the Etruscan story accurately in fiction, avoiding cliché where there is no solid narratives source to start from. Creating film, TV series, or novel about the Etruscans is much harder than for the Vikings, as in the famous series Vikings, or the Latins, as the Italian film and TV series The First King. The difficulty mainly comes from the scarcity and unreliability of ancient sources. For Vikings, we have sagas and historical accounts. For Latins, the legend of Romulus or Remus has been passed down and adapted. Even the stories are not always historically accurate. They do not drastically change what we know about these people. For the Etruscan situation, different. Ancient writings about them can almost exclusively from Greek and Roman authors, often biased and eager to glorify their own cultures and the expense of the Etruscans. They created a strong myth of the Etruscan otherness, portraying them as foreigners from distant lands. These ancient origin stories, featuring immigration and heroic founders, contain much action, which is essential for storytelling. From a producer perspective, a film based on these dramatic but inaccurate tales might have more box office potential than one grounded in the complex realities of Etruscan history, proto-history and prehistory, which involves a local population over the centuries. Today, we know these ancient sources are fragmentary, often contradictory, and not always supported by archaeological or linguistic evidence. Many of these stories, dating from around 500 BC, served as propaganda more than historical truth. The lack of a clear, shared narrative makes it very difficult to create believable characters, plots, and settings to engage modern audiences without resorting to stereotypes or invention. Even for historical novelists, it's nearly impossible to fully reconstruct the Tarsan language, dialogues, and mindset, unlike for Greeks, Roman, Vikings, where original texts survive. In short, the main challenge in portraying the Etruscans in film or television lies in the absence of an indigenous literary tradition and the unreliable nature of ancient sources. This means writers must navigate a landscape of great historical uncertainty. So I ask you, when there is no solid narrative foundation that aligns with modern scholarship, how we can create stories? Should we start directly from specialized academic studies? In my opinion, that would be very difficult for a writer, for a screenwriter, start directly from specialized academic sources. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This makes to think a lot, because also one of the questions you asked were, oh, we still see your screen. Just to go on.
I'm fighting with the Keynote. I'm fighting with Keynote.
Just interrompi condivisione. Non fa cliccare?
No.
Interrompi condivisione.
Non me lo fa cliccare.
Oh, strano.
Ora lo posso. Ok.
I hope English was clear. I'm sorry, but
Can you send us all the slides you didn't show us?
I'm a rookie with the slides. I'm sorry.
Was nice.
I'm a beginner, not even a beginner.
Don't worry. Well, you said a lot of things that makes us think. You were also asking yourself, no, it is always possible to capture the reality. Of course, if we look at, I don't know, the Museum of Illusions we've seen before, we can say that it's not a very important thing. But then, of course, I don't know, if we look at Museo Montebelluna, it is, of course, important. So it's the context, of course, it's always a guide, and storytellers also are not neutral, as you were saying. So for sure, I think that these teams will be talking again on this later in our final discussion, for sure. So thank you. And now I'm honored to welcome here Professor Giovanni Mastronuzzi from University of Salento, and thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Federica.
Not in full screen. It is not in full screen. Not
in full screen?
Yes, it is not in presentation mode.
I see presentation mode.
We see the package conferenze and a preview of the slides, but not in full presentation mode.
Neither now?
Maybe because it is not the desktop that it is shared, but just a window. I don't know.
Wait a moment. No?
Now it's okay. Now it's
Okay.
loaded. Now we see you, Professor, in the slides, but we can see.
You can see the PowerPoint. Okay.
Thank you. Very
Well,
nice.
Thank you.
let's stay this way. Well, first of all, thanks to Simona and to Federica for this introduction. And I hope to be correctly focused on the topic of the workshop, because I'm a field archaeology normally, and normally I'm used to study soils, layers, ancient walls, ancient handmaids, potsherds. So not exactly what now I'm discussing. Anyway, as a researcher at the University of Salento, I was involved in the creation of images as member of the equipe led by Francesco D'Andria, Professor Francesco D'Andria, who has improved the cooperation with the study of drawings in Clink in Firenze. And I will discuss how he and we arrived to this cooperation, starting from, but I have a problem. How can I go? Okay, no, I don't have any problem. Starting from the study of archaeological contexts, mainly archaeological contexts of the pre-Roman period in southern Apulia, in the southeastern Italy, well-known Salento as a touristic objective of the last few years. The topic, the focus of this study in the years has been pre-Roman Salento, but not only, because through the years also the Roman Imperial Age, the late Roman period, the Middle Ages and the modern period have been the target of reconstruction oriented to the presentation of images like this. Well, the problem grew up just for the study and the presentation to the public of the Iron Age context that, as you can see and as you can imagine, is very hard to recognize and to communicate to a public of not specialists. In particular, we could say that this context with soil scattered with stones and shards is substantially unintelligible, meaningful only to the visionary archaeologists. So the question was, how should archaeological contents be communicated in an exhibition? And this problem was just set up for the first time in 1982, in the occasion of the exhibition dedicated to the excavations at Otranto, in Otranto, led by the University of Lecce in cooperation with the British School at Rome. So, in that occasion, some drawings, some reconstructive drawings of the archaeological context were made by an artist, and this is the kind of reconstruction that was suggested with watercolored images and carbon pencil drawings on the right. Starting from what we have seen before, or considering also the potsherds that you can see in these other images. This was another problem, not only communicate the context, but not only the context, but also to show how those fragments could be referred to vessels And this is why at the end, some other reconstruction, real reconstruction, even not exactly experimental, that is not built with the ancient tools, were suggested to the wide public. At the end, in just a few years ago, a few months ago, the other reconstruction of the singular, the specific context and actions made by the ancient people of southern Apulia were suggested in this kind of artistic vision. The problem went on through the years, and after the finding of a residential complex in Vaste in the late 80s, there was the occasion of constructing an exhibition completely focused on this ancient context that is very important because of the finding of a treasure of 150 silver coin. But the archaeological structures were very low, very difficult to recognize and to show to the public. So were done many tentative reconstruction, sometimes very nice for the years. You have to imagine that this happened in the first 90s through the reconstruction of the architect Paolo Perfido, and then the University of Bari, and then by the studio of the architect Miazza, and finally by the architect Fabrizio Ghio, who realized the diorama on the right. The same architect Perfido realized the reconstruction of the Paleo-Christian church, in the same settlement of Vaste but in the last few years, a problem has been manifest, that is the rendering of the images become too old very fast. And so finally we have the reconstruction by the CNR, the architect Francesco Gabelloni of the CNR here in Lecce, that is artistic even if constructed on specific data managed through through specific software that is CAD. This is the archaeological context with the church, with the Paleo-Christian church. Through the years, in the first 2000, precisely in 2002, there was the occasion of the exhibition in Ugento dedicated to a very precious bronze statue of the end of the 6th century BC, and one of the rare examples of the bronze statues of that period. And the clue was to show the statue in its context, starting from very indiciary fragments according to the registration of to the data coming from the excavation, but with the possibility of suggesting an artistic vision of the place in which the statue was honored. At the end, every single element from the whole region was taken in consideration, and was built this kind of images just with the with the presence of the studio ink link. These other reconstruction. But also this step of the story of artistic ideas and archaeological reconstruction at the end led to a specific approach that is images had to be based on different levels of data reliability, high, medium, and low. High was in connection with the archaeological features and structure in situ. That is what is undoubtedly truth. Medium, archaeological elements which are known, not directly linked to the specific context, and so we can imagine the objects, for instance, from the region. And low, qualitative elements derived from suggestions, from the explanation, and so on. That is colors, hairs, dresses, and etc. So, if you consider the archaic settlement of Cavallino, where also the excavations were done in those years, we can look at this other reconstruction of the walls, and then we can correctly point out what is high with the H, medium with the M, and low with the L. The walls correspond to archaeological elements. The stele on the right is known from the region, but not from the Cavallino settlement. The warriors are a suggestion. They aren't known, and also their weapons, helmets, shields are very badly known in the region. Anyway, we can imagine that a Messapic warrior, an ancient warrior of the region, was used to fight in a way like Greek hoplites. Even in another exhibition in Cavallino in 2005 was the occasion for other reconstruction made by Jean-Claude Golven of the CNRS in France. You can see the reconstruction of the Wool settlement and details of the single neighbors and various areas of the settlement with houses, holy places, and so on. Other sites like Ifani in southern part of the Salento and Otranto reconstructed on the right with specific reference to San Vito dei Normanni. But not only cooperation with Inklink, but also with other artists or professionals with specific knowledge of drawings and so on. Like in this case, when the finding of a grave of the second half of the 6th century BC was communicated through the drawings that were imagined for communicating to the public the ritual, the funerary ritual of engravement of the dead. like also in this other case of the so-called enkitrismos, the graves of babies inside vases. Here you see another site, the sanctuary, Messapian sanctuary of Oria, dedicated to a goddess, Demetra, and their daughter, perhaps, Persephone, as known by inscriptions, statuettes, and so on. And after the excavations, these are the reconstruction realized by the studio Inklink. And finally, those reconstructions were so appreciated that were put inside the project of the MUSA, that is Historical Archaeological Museum of the University here in Lecce, or starting from these other pictures, were used for the project of exhibition in the Museum of Oria, with the reconstruction of the single rooms dedicated to the sacred meals inside the sanctuary. That is here shown in the excavation of the first years 2000. These are other images of the settlement of Castro with the recent identified sanctuary of Athena, even if the central statue is not Athena, well, but it is not so important. And these are the reconstruction starting from the archaeological elements, the walls, and the walls with the small temple dedicated to the goddess. But since Castro can be recognized as an element in the center of the poem of the Aeneid, poem wrote by Virgilio, written by Virgilio at the end of the 1st century BC. This was the occasion for reconstruct even something very not properly the reconstruction of something known, but the reconstruction of a
imaginative.
It's difficult to express. Yes, something imagined, but something described, invented, and constructed oppositely for constructing the descendants of Rome from ancient Troy. The images here show the walls of the ancient Messapian settlements. These structures perhaps do not need to be communicated by drawings, artistic vision, and so on. But the problem appears in these other situations where the structures are very low, conserved, very badly conserved, just the foundation elements. And especially at right, there is a very particular situation that is the wall destroyed by an earthquake. So the elements of that walls rotate of 90 degrees. And on the field, it is very difficult to recognize this situation. And so was projected the Parco dei Guerrieri, the Park of the Warriors, for showing the elements, the archaeological elements, preserve them, put something that could better involve the public with obsidian towers, the shape of the ancient warriors, and for the earthquake was imagined this reconstruction of the walls going down, and the earthquake is scientifically proved by archaeoseismologists. So this is not an idea, an invention. It is certainly known. These other are the elements of an ancient Messapian farm, also object of reconstruction by another Stadio Noriel in Turin, and they are small screenshot coming from a video that shows the archaeological elements reconstructed and the landscapes, or also a small tower in the countryside that was reconstructed by Giacomo Vizzino, and that someone in here also knows. Finally, I'm concluding. This is the sanctuary of Vaste in the very center of the ancient settlement in Piazza Dante. Again, archaeological elements are very difficult to recognize and to communicate, also very badly conserved, also even if sometimes very significant, like the stone head of the goddess to whom was dedicated the sanctuary. And other archaeological, epigraphical documents like the stone engraved, the vase painted, and so on. And each of these elements contributed to the creation of a general scene, reconstructive of the whole sanctuary, or a specific scene on the left that shows the ritual of libation. Just for concluding these two elements, provisional reconstruction must be considered a tool for understanding. That is a tool that archaeologists have to use for scientific research, for better understanding the archaeological context. But at the same time, the artistic vision must be considered a means of sharing knowledge in the context of public archaeology or public engagement, for better communicate what we derive from the archaeology excavations and reconstruction. Well, thank you so much. I hope that I wasn't too long and too boring.
Not at all, Professor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, really. It's really useful and important to see how all this collaboration, not just with the illustrators, but also 3D artists, can open up new possibilities for research communications. And they show well that even in an academic environment, storytelling can be actually a really powerful tool. And I have a question on that, but I'll formulate it later because we can now finally open our final discussion. So thank you again, Professor. And it's we can say that it's been an afternoon, plenty of ideas, curiosities. We've seen narratives that produce inclusivities, narratives that produce even empathy for not just something from the past, but also in the case of Alessandro Castellano, for example, even for something that maybe doesn't exist. And all these different experiences shared here have produced for sure a very complete overlook on the topic. And I'm sure that there are a lot of questions for now. Before that, I'd like to thank all the speakers and everyone who was present here, connected here today to share all these views and experiences together. So thank you very much. And so we can share our thoughts, comments. Thank you to everyone.
We'll start again by Johanna's remarks at the last. Johanna, it was interesting what you proposed to the discussion.
You mean my question, right?
Yes,
And
yes. If you
however,
please, if you can repeat it and
I will rephrase it maybe. I will share a thought and why I coined this question. It's because I think that it might be hard to create a narrative in museum, which is on one hand, which is interesting, compelling, but on the other hand, is very, let's call it well balanced. Why I'm saying well balanced? Because from my experience, many times when I'm visiting museums, sometimes I feel quite overwhelmed because that's my opinion again, when I'm entering into narrative, it might be narrative which is presented on the wall texts, right? It might be a narrative which I'm presented to via some devices. It might be audio narrative. And many times I don't feel comfortable because I think that many narratives are using just simple tools to let me engage. For example, by using overly emotional language. If some narrative starts, for example, by saying, I'm inventing, let's start this wonderful adventure. Well, I don't know if the adventure for me would be wonderful or not. So I feel that the narrator is imposing me something, and I would like to have my voice. I would like to have my own opinion. And this is also related with, I think, a theme which is current in the discussions about museums now, which is what is the impact the museum's narratives and what's the impact museum's stories should have on the visitors. And I guess it might be different depending on the museum, right? So that's my dot.
It is, and I don't know if there are valid answers to that observations, because there are different personalities behind the storytelling of a museums, and this opens a big questions, a big debate, because I think that this kind of things are used to avoid the so-called museum fatigue. But then, of course, someone may think that this is not so extraordinary for me, and so I don't know if
many times it's not. That's the point.
fatiguing,
stressing. It's kind of.
Giovanni, you have an idea about it. I've seen that you have clicked, because you have also set up a museum and of several museums, and probably you have this experience of how not to be compelling, but leading the public, inviting the public to
and the worst, I think that the worst is there are some museums which are constructed like, let's call them pathways, like the earthquake museum in Lisbon, in which I have to enter. I have to listen to the narrative and I can't get out of there. And that's the problem for me sometimes.
It's
Some issues, some remarks.
I don't know if someone has something to add.
May I say something?
For sure.
Well, I do agree with Joanna. By the way, always more there are tentatives to self-building our experience in museums. It is very difficult, well, but it corresponds to the idea expressed that I do not like to be guided in a way that I don't like. So it is a very complex situation. But this is
Joanna,
only
what do you
suggestion.
suggest if you would to speak to a museum director, organizer, educational manager? What do you would suggest instead of these compelling invitations and?
For example, maybe one suggestion I have is to reduce adjectives or reduce any kind of language which kind of try to frame my experiences, my emotions, right? So that's because that's something I don't like, but I feel that the museum, the curator, whoever it is imposing some kind of emotion on me because I might not agree, I might not find something wonderful or exciting, etc. I would like to have my own judgments, maybe at the end of the visit. So I would try avoiding adjectives. For example, of course, I don't know whether this is the best idea, but that's what comes to my mind at first.
So you
So acting on the language.
Yeah, and we can also add to that some quantifiers like wonderful, fantastic, they don't even tell us anything about the experience, right? It's very general. It's a very general way of expressing emotions.
There's Alessandro Castellano that maybe wants to add something. Please, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I agree with Joanna because I have a naive way to approach museums. Normally, I just go inside and try to see what just capture my attention. So I don't manage to read everything. I feel like it is impossible to have this kind of experience. And sometimes, as she say, you feel imposed like, okay, you are inside a museum and already you feel that this is important. This is something, but maybe it's not on my way of feeling as a visitor, okay? And I was thinking about a solution. And for example, for me, it's quite interesting let's call it asynchronous narrative. So not a narration happening inside the museum, but a narration happening before the visit of the museum, okay? So sometimes I really enjoy to go inside the museums and look for an object that someone told me something about, okay? I had this kind of experience also when I studied the history of art, and I finally managed to go inside the museums and find the work of art I was studying on the book. It's this kind of emotion that helps me to get a link to the museums. And you don't need to have the story of all the objects. You just need a few things to discover the rest of the museums. I was in the Museum of Science in London, for example, because a friend of mine told me that they have a kind of monster-like, kind of, how they call it, sirena. Okay, yeah, but it was a kind of fake taxonomy monster. They built it, of course, but it was part of the collection, and it was very funny for me to go explore the museums just looking for this. And of course, I discovered a lot of other things in the meanwhile. So also when I went to the Terme di Diocleziano museums, for me the first time I entered, and it was not interesting for me at all because I didn't know anything about this object. But then I went with a friend of mine that explained to me the meaning of this object. And after this visit, I was able to bring other people with me and make them interested in this object, because for me it became something different than the point of view. I think that the problem is most of the time we have a specific point of view that is the point of view of the people who studies the object, and they just try to transmit the historical, archaeological, and but it's different from the visitors. Sometimes the narration of the story can be slightly different, but much more involving. But it's kind of personal experience, so you never know what is the catchy things to tell. But I'm quite sure that to learn about something before the visit and to have something that can help you to have a link with the museums can be a quite powerful way of using a narrative to involve persons.
So we try to do this with our narratives, because in the narrative of the projects, we anticipate what the player is going to visit. Johanna has proved it because she has also, Federica, they have pre-tested the game. And it was a way to induce curiosity into the gamer, into the player. And so I'm moving and they told me about this population, and this population is what is presented in the next museum. And so the narrative is put between the locations of the pathway. And so in this way, as soon as you have finished with the first one, you are moving to the second one, and something in the narrative anticipates what you are going to find, or questions, but inserted in the everyday life. And it was difficult to find the right medium. I appreciated a lot I take this time to make some compliments to all of you, because all interventions were very interesting. I appreciated Giovanni showing that there is a high, a medium, and a low level. That is very, very good, because I never thought about this, but to segment, so to make this visible, what is highly possible, what is medium possible, what is low possible, but reconstructible about, as from many others occasions, situations. That's very important. It's a philological attempt, and it should be nice that something similar could be told to the public. So, okay, I present you the narrative, but at the same time, I try to tell you what is sure, what is less sure, because it's the other question that also Sergio pointed out. He wrote, so empowering or disempowering, reinforcing or challenging what we already know, and the truth, the archaeological, the scientific truth. So how do we have to move? Too much fantasy, too much novel, make the scientific reality sometimes very far away, so very underestimated. But on the other side, you have to awake the interest of the public. And how do you do this? Also, not with a didactic, pedagogical explanation, subtitles, and everything. It was also our challenge. For example, some colleagues at the university try to be so didactic presentation, educational presentation, as it were in a university room, and that's what we are going to do. And we told, be careful. Don't be too didascalic. Don't be too frontal lesson, so to say. You have to explain in poor words, in a simple way, without without so many adjectives, okay? But you have to see the landscape from the eyes of the ancient person. That's a very difficult task because you have to be really philological. What might an ancient person have thought, have seen about? So a person, for example, a Roman matrona of Celtic origin, what is in her eyes when she travels through Verona and sees the fossils belonging to her people, a population from where she comes? That's very difficult. And that's so empowering or disempowering. So what do we want to bring to the public? So truth, on semi-truth, high-level truth, mid-level truth, low truth. Because in other things, once the story are told, they becomes the real story. Let's take to our storytelling. In many cases of our society, storytelling is more important than reality, and not the truth, but what from the truth can be explained makes the difference. And it is more important that it remains as the official story, but in many cases it has nothing to do with the real story. That's the question. How do we move among two different levels?
Social media can be a real example of this. It's not, it's what remains kind of forever, but it's not reality in most cases. So it's a thing. And I was also thinking about what Alessandro Castellano was saying before about the way in which, in most cases, archaeological museums narrate things. And the fact is that even, I don't know, few years ago, archaeological museums were full of a very strong words, technical words that nobody, of course, could ever understand. So it's a tough matter. It's a complicated, a really complicated thing. In most cases, I don't know if the storytelling was centered and really building bridges, maybe destroying them, and I don't know, avoiding the love for archaeology or any other discipline. I don't know if in most cases they centered the point. I don't know if there are any other questions, but for example, I wanted to ask something to Professor Giovanni Mastronuzzi because I was curious myself about the thing that Simona mentioned before about the high, medium, and low levels of the illustrations. And I was wondering in how many cases, for example, binding the co-creation process behind, I don't know, it may be a reconstruction with an illustration of a 3D model. And I was wondering in the co-creation, if the co-creation process, in how many cases it opened new questions. I don't know, even I don't know, in imagining a simple house, are we sure that I don't know, the tiles have this shape and everything? It may be, of course, complicated. So I don't know if sometimes these type of things open up new questions. So I was wondering.
Yes, Federica, thanks for this question. Well, I have to say something for this question, speaking about the dioramas more than the illustration, and specifically for the reconstruction of the Paleo-Christian church in Vaste. It was demonstrated by constructing the diorama that our first hypothesis of reconstruction was impossible. So even for illustration drawings, we can say that when you put your ideas on the paper, not only for describing with words, but describing with images, you have to be sure that what you are constructing can stay
Up.
because on the other side you have a building that comes down. But your question also must be reasoned when we speak about the presence of persons inside one building, one of the rooms, of the dining rooms of the sanctuary Etruria. We had an idea of few members for the presence at the sacred meals, and by the drawings and by the archaeological data, it has been demonstrated that those were groups of 5, 6, 4, 5, 6 persons, not more. So it is really an occasion for demonstrating the hypothesis, for yes, for demonstrating the hypothesis, and
we can say challenging in
yes,
cases.
for a scientific, correct approach.
Yes, maybe we should do this type of things more, because
Yes.
in most cases the things one writes, then when yes, one have to put them together, thinks way more about it. So thank you for this answer. Simona, you have a question, please. Thank you.
Yes, the same happened with the constructing the narratives. So in some cases, we are forced to test, to verify whether what we were telling was truth or not. So it is interesting because in building narratives, you have to verify better than if you are full of conscience, full of responsibility. You have to verify before you tell something or you reconstruct something that it isn't true. And you are forced to let me test once again. I wasn't so sure 100%. And it was difficult. Also because in some cases, what you have found, for example, what you have proposed, it's not the same that is, for example, in the museum narratives, in the scripts, in the titles, in the captions of the objects. That was the problem. So the research has gone on in the last 10 years. And what they have written probably goes back to some years ago, but we know now that we have something else to tell. And we cannot follow simply what the museum says, but in this case, it is also difficult to go against the museum and what in the museum is written. And that made the work very difficult. And we had to make a disclaimer and to tell, okay, the narratives and the challenges are all created by a team of specialists who try to go the latest news about the topics, but not always necessarily coinciding with what is proposed by the museums. But it was difficult, isn't it? And okay, so we try to do our best to find something in the middle, but it is difficult, and you have to research and to check again and again and many times, and probably we have also make some errors, of course. Alessandro, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Simona. I reminded an event in Madrid when the topic was museum and inclusion, And there was a presentation from the director of il Museo di Brera. So at the time it was, I think, from USA, not sure. And what he did was very interesting because to try to involve all the people inside the museum staff, he was making interviews to everyone, from the people staying on the door to the one on the ticket office, very short videos asking them what is the museum for them and if they have a memory on some work of art inside the museums. And I think this is interesting because sometimes we forgot that the story of an object is not only the old story, the real story on the use of the object in the past, but also the story of the object inside the museum at that time. So sometimes the memory of this person was a memory about why people were so interested in something that for them was without meaning, and how they discover the meaning of this object. So I think this one is also a way to move outside the museum, because this video were supposed to be shown on social media, and a different way to involve people in the story of object, because sometimes we are too much inside what we study and we forgot about a different point of view, and you never know what is the point that can make person interested in what you have. So, for example, we were talking about asynchronic narration outside the museum, and probably social media could be a good instrument for museums to try to tell different stories and to try to involve people in a different way that are not strictly didactic or strictly involved in the disciplines that we are sometimes too much inside to understand a point of view. So the story is not only the real story, but it's also the story of the contemporary object. Sometimes it's interesting to go and see a sculpture that was damaged and it was quite famous for this reason or whatever it is. I don't know. So the story, it's the full story of this object, and we can discover them sometimes only on different narration. Of course, you cannot tell all of this inside the museums, so that's why we need also to try different way. I'm sorry, I have to go away. So it was also my way to say hello to everyone and thank you for everything.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao, thank you, Alessandro.
Have a good night. Yes, but I
think we are at the end of the...
Yes, but maybe this is the key, producing empathy and not boredom. This may be one of the key. I also like to thank you, everyone who was here with us this afternoon. Thank you very much. It was a very beautiful experience. We had an overlook on everything, and this was very precious. So thank you to all of you. Thank you very much. And I think that this will be on YouTube, maybe, right, Simona?
YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Alteritas Info.
So have a good night, have a good evening to you all, and see you for sure.
See you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.